Ben Simmons. Do you want Ben Simmons back in the Sixers uniform? And is Eric Gordon better than Buddy Hield? We'll talk about that more next on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Hi, I'm Keith Pompey, and this is my right-hand man, John Mitchell, and we are the co-hosts of Locked On 76ers. We got a lot to talk to y'all about today. John is brought up asking the question because it seems to be popular right now. Should Ben Simmons come back? Should the Sixers sign him for a minimum? What should they do? Should they bring him back? We talk about that the first one. Again, the second one, we're going to talk about Eric Gordon, Buddy Hield. Who's better? And then the last segment, we're just going to, got a secret for y'all. Whatever comes to mind, that's what we're going to talk about. But, Mitch, talk to me about your thoughts on Ben Simmons coming back.
Yeah, Keith, it was interesting last night. That talk started to percolate. You know, you surfing the internet and you're looking for stuff to talk about, looking for stuff to read. And Ben Simmons kept popping up on my feeds, and apparently, and this is putting the cart way in front of the horse. You know, I don't know if there's any activity around this, but there is this premise out there, this thesis by some Sixers fans and Mr. Love-Hate Ben Simmons, that some people are actually wishful that they created this scenario where the Nets buy Simmons out. I think he's owed about $40 million this year. Where the Nets buy him out, and the 76ers bring back Ben, hence the Bring Back Ben movement, bring back Ben Simmons to Philadelphia, and, you know, as a 76er, and put him, you know, see if he can fulfill that need, because there is a need for a power forward on that roster. And I found that interesting because, you know, Ben is a guy that was one of the most hostile and vitriolic breakups I've seen in Philadelphia. It is probably since T.O., you know, probably since that. And he just became completely polarizing. The thing now is that the Ben Simmons, who we've seen since the 76ers traded him for James Harden, is just not much of a player, you know. But he does put up numbers that would qualify him as a decent power forward, as a decent minimum contract guy. You know, I mean, granted, he only appeared in 15 games last year. He only played in 42 games the year before that. He's never averaged more than 6.9 points in the past two seasons. You know, he's still a decent rebounder, 6.3, 7.9. But the thing is, is that a step backwards, Keith, in bringing a guy who brings back such rancid memories, Ben Simmons? But do you put your feelings aside, take into consideration the condition of his back, and just set your feelings aside? Say, hey, the 76ers do need a power forward. That's because, you know, and at a minimum, he might be your guy.
Yeah. That's a great question. You know, the thing is, I'll say this. You know, Joel Embiid was talking to Tyrese Maxey recently on, I believe it was Maxey's podcast, where he said Ben Simmons was the one who got away, right? The one that they could have had something to work out. like you said, the way it ended was rough.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you never say never in regards to repairing a
Fractured relationship.
fractured relationship. The only problem I have is that the work that Ben Simmons didn't put into his game
Mm-hmm.
in the early stages is coming back to bite him in the tail.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is when you look at Ben Simmons, he was blessed with elite athleticism. He could do anything. Like if Ben Simmons wanted to play soccer, if he was smaller, he would be playing over in Europe. If Ben Simmons wanted to play football, he would be in the NFL. I mean, he had that much God-given ability. But when it comes down to God-given ability, sometimes you slack off on the other things. Like you don't put in the work, improving your shot. You don't do things like that. So to me, when I saw him play last year a couple of times, and the year before that, he didn't have that explosiveness. And because of that, he couldn't get to certain spots.
Mm-hmm.
And what that did is it took away a lot of his game. So my thing is, if he can't be explosive and do and play the way that you wanted him to, he might just be a rotation guy or a little bit of guy. And I think it could be a distraction. And the thing is, sometimes he says he wants to come back, but is it because you want to come back? And again, I got the utmost respect for Ben, but do you want to come back because the grass isn't always greener on the other side?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come back, are you going to expect to be the guy that you were before? Are you going to expect them to treat you the way they did before?
That's
like
not
giving you
happening.
the ball and all that other stuff. So, when you factor all that stuff in, they might be better off getting Dorian FinneySmith trading for him or somebody else who comes on off the books. But yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot of bad blood, and I also look at Ben and I look at his game, and I don't see that explosiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a jump shot. I don't see a foul shooter.
Yeah.
I see somebody.
You'll see that at some point in the summertime video.
Yeah. Yeah. What I do see is a guy that I can't put on the floor in the fourth quarter of a close game.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? Like, you want to go out and get people that's going to help you win the championship.
Right.
You got to ask, Daryl Morey has to ask himself, is over him being a distraction or not a distraction or a circus type thing, creating a circus type atmosphere.
Right.
Is he going to help me win a championship?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you can't go get him.
Right. And it's like, is it worth it?
Yeah. And now again, that's objective. That's his opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But to me, if he says he can't help me win a championship, then it's not worth bringing him back.
Yeah, and with him, I mean, we all saw what he did when he, rookie of the year, beating out guys like Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell. When we saw this guy, we were like, this is a more athletic version of Magic Johnson, minus the jump shot. And of course, Magic worked on his jump shot because Magic jumper was always that stand, freeze, and take the jumper, and it was always better than Ben. Ben never had a jump shot, but you saw the red flags. You've been through this before, and obviously he's not a guy with a $170 million deal. He would be a guy on a much lesser contract. But is it worth it? You know that Ben can go kitty cat on you. He's a likable guy, but he quit. He literally told the Sixers, keep this $30 million. I can't play for you all. And that stuff will be unavoidable. When he goes out there and he has bad moments and he's passing up layups, and I still see him doing stuff like that. people are going to be like, nah, we just, we got rid of this. Why do we bring it back? Again, the flip side is he's even with the compromised back, still a good defender. Still a good rebounder. But it was just such a bad ending to that relationship that you just don't know if you want to revisit that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You don't know if you want to do that.
Well, I know what I do want to do is let's talk about game time right now. You want to get out to a Major League Baseball game this summer. You've built some fond memories of baseball in the past, and right now the Phillies are building great memories in the present for the Philadelphia fans. Well, I think you should consider Game Time right about now. You can get last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy MLB tickets, and for every other event, the concerts that are coming to town, all sorts of things. So that's a good thing to do is to take a look at Game Time app right now. And I would suggest anybody that right about now you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Again, download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So tell me, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? You sometimes have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Why don't you make the switch to Locked On Sports today? A free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screeching. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Do it today, people. Definitely do it today. So the second thing we want to talk about is we want to compare two players. And the two players that we want to compare are Eric Gordon, who is going to sign a 1-year minimum deal with the Sixers. And the second player we want to talk about is Buddy Hield, who could be in line to get signed and traded to the Golden State Warriors. So, Mitch, tell me, bro, who do you think is better? I mean, how do you compare?
It's interesting. They're both good three-point shooters. We didn't get a chance to really see that from from Buddy Hield this year. I think Buddy Hield is closer to, but not the player we saw in Game 6 against the New York Knicks, where he had a 17-point quarter and he really shot the ball well. We know that he's somewhat of a defensive liability. When he first arrived, he was showed that he could do some things other than the three-point shot, but he kind of those creative moments kind of became fewer and far between later on as the season went on, and eventually got to the point where he wasn't being played by the team. He's younger than Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon has got some miles on him, but Eric Gordon can still shoot it. He can still shoot the rock. And interestingly enough, he appeared in 68 games last year. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Buddy Hield appeared in like that weird thing where
83 or something, like 83.
Yeah, something crazy.
84.
Played
84 games.
And Eric Gordon, once upon a time he was a 22-point per game scorer, but that was you got to go back to 2011, to find that. So, I think they're similar players. I think the Sixers the one thing that the Sixers will want them to do is, who was the better defender at this stage? And you're not looking at great defenders in either situation. Eric Gordon at one time was a better defender. But man, he is really, he's 35 years old. and which is actually, 1 year older than the free agent gem that the 76ers has signed. So it's kind of interesting to see how differently people age. So if I had to go with one guy right now, I think I'd probably give a little bit of an edge to Eric Gordon, just because, Buddy is more predictable as a player. You can force him to settle into just being one dimensional. I think Eric Gordon has still more creativity, even at an advanced age. I think he has more creativity than Buddy Hield does.
Yeah, I think, you know what, to me, when you look at it, but Eric Gordon is a career 37.1 3-point shooter, where Buddy Hield is a career 40% shooter. Well, I mean, but when you actually break it down, like, Gordon played in 886 games compared to 632, to Buddy. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're both pretty good sample sizes, but at the same time, the more games you play, the older you get, the shot goes down a little bit.
Yep.
The one thing to point out, though, they're both on the Bahamian national team this summer. They're like hoping to try to make it to the Olympics. So that's something to point out. But here's the deal. I think that for what the Sixers are looking for right now, when you have like a Buddy Hield, Buddy is not going to get the minutes that Buddy would probably like to get, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why you go out there and you draft a Jared McCann. A rookie guy could come in. He can shoot the ball as well. Buddy's bigger than him, the whole nine. But at the same time, we're talking about filling out a roster, and Buddy is going to have to make more money, right?
Yes.
So I think you go out and you get a Jared McCann, and then you also go like the Sixers did. You could sign an Eric Gordon to a minimum and hope that the spacing is there enough to where he can, hit a couple shots, but also more so the leadership quality, and also the familiarity with playing with Paul George, things like that. So
right.
I feel like when you factor in, if you have to say which one you're going to take at this time, who is better at this time, I would have to say Buddy, in my opinion.
Right.
But when you say who is the better fit for what the Sixers are trying to do, I'm going to have to say Eric. You know what I mean? I'm going to have to, because Buddy needs to play. And if Buddy ain't playing, he ain't you know what I'm saying? It's like he ain't going to help you. He may, but I think that when you got a guy that's 35, been in the league 16 years, he can be a good locker room guy for you. You know what I mean? He can be. Whereas Buddy, don't get me wrong, he played in the league for a minute, but at the same time, Buddy, I can see Buddy getting disgruntled. I want to play. I want to do this. I want to do that. You know what I mean? Because see, the thing about Buddy is every spot that he's been at, everything would seem to be good until he lost his spot.
Right.
And then after that, he got traded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he wanted out. So to me, it's like you look at Buddy. Are you going to start him at the 2? Probably not. If you're not going to start him, then don't bring him here, because it could become a problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what was interesting is last year, Eric Gordon still managed to play 28 minutes per game, and he started 24. So he's a guy who, and you didn't hear much about him, obviously, because he wasn't setting the league on fire, but and he was in that crazy situation out there, in Phoenix. But he's a guy who, like you said, he has familiarity with Paul George. You don't need him to come in. You don't need that guy to come in here and be a dominant player. You just don't need that. And I think from a chemistry standpoint, from the pieces, it's almost like 6 to 1, half a dozen in the other. Buddy Hield will give you more explosive minutes, only because he's a younger player. But I do think that, and 37%, 40%, you're not going to be taking a whole lot of threes. You got your 3-point shooters now. You got Maxey. You got you have Paul George. You know, theoretically, those are the guys who be getting the lion's share of those threes. So I think Eric Gordon is a good pick for them. I think he fits well what they're trying to do. You get your big three and you put pieces around it. And I think he falls in line with that. And again, Buddy Hield can get a little moody when he's not seeing his minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But look, man, I'm thinking about maybe we could just talk about, we yesterday we talked about the power forwards, and I would kind of like revisit some of that. I got some names, a guy that I would like to talk to you about, and we talked about him, Dorian Finney-Smith, and just see how you feel about him. I think that the only problem is you got to trade for him, but we'll talk about that when we get right back. That was quick. So, Mitch, here's a guy I want to talk to you about, Dorian Finney-Smith, right? So, Dorian Finney-Smith, I've known him for a while, a good kid, or I followed him for a while. So, the thing about Dorian Finney-Smith, he's from Portsmouth. Now, either his mom's from Camden or she's from Chester.
Okay.
She's from one of the two. So, he has family here, right? Okay. And the thing is, he's undersized at 6'7", 220 pounds, but he plays both positions, power forward and small forward. Now, last year when he was with Dallas, he was the glue guy. Then he get traded to the Brooklyn Nets, the glue guy. He averages 8.5 points, 4.7 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of dirty work. So, now the Jazz is a serious consider. The Jazz are considering him seriously.
Mm-hmm.
The Sixers had some. I don't know how serious the conversations were, but to me, right now, he seems like he could be a good get. The only problem with him is that if they trade him and they take more salary, the Sixers, than they're putting out, they're going to be in that second apron.
Mm-hmm.
Close to. They don't want to do that. Right? Now, the thing is, though, you look at it, he made like 12, but Paul Reed is making if you get rid of Paul Reed, you have like $9 million left. So it's a long, hard thought about getting this guy. And there could be some other guys out there. But I think that with you got a star like Embiid,
right?
You got Maxey, you got Paul George. It's good to have a guy that's coming in and that's going to be a hustle dude.
Yeah.
I feel like he could fulfill that need. You know what I mean? I think that he could.
Yeah. It seems like we are going to hear his name pop up now. It sounds like he might be on the move. I mean, I like him. He he doesn't move the needle exponentially, but like I said, he's around a career 8.2, 8.3 points per game. He's a decent rebounder, and he does all the things that sounds very cliche, but he does all those things that you want an energy guy to do. An energy guy, hustle guy. That's who he is. I think you may have that in Paul Reed again. It's going to come. It comes down to money. What they're going to do. They spent so much time playing Paul Reed as a backup five, as a small ball five. And if you look at their roster right now, they really don't have that. I don't know what the kid from UCLA is going to provide them with, but like I said, Dorian Finney-Smith, wherever he's been solid. You be inserting a solid guy in the roster. And I know people are going to say, we all just got finished talking about Ben. We think Ben is a better player. Ben does have more skill than he does. It's just, Ben's back is a ticking time bomb. You just don't know whether he's going to be there for even one game to the next. So, I mean, I like Dorian Finney-Smith. He's a, you know, there's a hodgepodge of players out there who play the four, and I don't think there's a lot of super quality there. But again, you know, you're looking for guys who are going to be available to you night in and night out, and you know, who can have their moments. And you know, we've seen Dorian Finney-Smith have his moments. So I'm not opposed to possibly trading for him. You know.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is it's just the money. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I mean, like being in the cap space and all this stuff, and you know, there's some other guys who can become available. Like I know that they spoke to Reggie Bullock, but he's not a power forward, right?
Right.
They also spoke to a guy Hayward Highsmith, spoke to his representation. So you know what I mean? But he's a guy that he's also that same 6'7" around, can play both positions.
Tweeners.
Yeah, it was tweeners. You know what I mean? But I think in that situation, Dorian would be the guy that I would go after first. You know what I mean? He would be. But now here again, you never know what they can get with the sign and trade. So if they can get a sign and trade going. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's going on for the Sixers. And, you know, they got the big piece. Now it's all about roster construction. And I hate to say it, but losing Nico really hurt them.
It did.
Really hurt them a lot. But hey, I like Dorian a lot. But y'all, I would like to thank y'all for listening. We want y'all to have a blessed day, and we'll be back tomorrow. Peace.
Have a good one, y'all.